On April 14th at 10:30 in the morning Eastern Time, the massive eye of Super Typhoon Sinlaku made direct landfall over Tinian and Saipan, striking these United States territories simultaneously. Two islands ground zero at once. A personal weather station on Saipan recorded a pressure of 917 millibars, and that station never even caught the center of the storm. That means one thing: it was even worse at the core. Wind gusts hit 130 miles per hour. Roofs were ripped off and swallowed by the darkness. Cars flipped over. Wooden and tin structures collapsed like cardboard boxes. Sustained winds of 75 miles per hour held through Wednesday afternoon, making it impossible to go outside for another day and a half after the storm peaked. Sinlaku began forming on April 9th and immediately underwent rapid intensification, with wind speeds surging by 75 miles per hour in the first 24 hours alone. This explosive start was fueled by anomalous hydrological conditions, as sea surface temperatures held steady between 82 and 84 degrees Fahrenheit, while an exceptionally deep layer of warm water beneath provided a relentless reservoir of energy. This massive heat content did not just trigger the initial burst, it acted as a foundation for sustained, extreme growth. By the time Sinlaku peaked over the open ocean on April 12th, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center clocked its sustained winds at a staggering 186 miles per hour, or 300 kilometers per hour. Central pressure plummeted to 905 millibars, a reading rarely documented in the history of Pacific observations, and almost never this early in the calendar year. While the storm weakened slightly before striking Saipan, it retained its catastrophic power and immense destructive potential. Sinlaku was not just the strongest storm of 2026. It entered the record books as one of the rarest Category 5 typhoons ever documented in April. It was the second Category 5 cyclone of 2026, following Horatio, which churned across the southern Indian Ocean in late February. Sinlaku was stronger. By April 14th, the system had begun to weaken. Dry air and an eyewall replacement cycle had taken their toll. But weakening here is a purely technical term. At the time of landfall, Sinlaku was still packing at least Category 4 strength, with sustained winds holding between 155 and 175 miles per hour. Storm bands were already hammering Saipan, Rota, and Tinian since early morning, long before the eye ever reached land. The National Weather Service issued typhoon warnings for all three islands. The forecast left no room for optimism. Gusts up to 175 miles per hour, storm surge of 5 to 8 feet along coastal areas, wave run-up of 10 to 15 feet above normal tide line along windward beaches, and reefs. Rainfall totals of 15 to 25 inches were expected near the center of the storm, with isolated higher amounts possible. Taking the direct hit were Tinian and Saipan, the heart of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, a U.S. territory home to roughly 50,000 people, most of them living on Saipan. These islands run on tourism. Their infrastructure is vulnerable and there is nowhere to evacuate to. There is no mainland to run to. Guam, located about 78 miles to the south, home to 170,000 residents, Andersen Air Force Base, Naval Base Guam, and one of the most strategically critical U.S. military hubs in the entire Pacific, was placed under a tropical storm warning and a typhoon watch. Sinlaku's track shifted slightly northward, sparing the island a direct hit. But that only goes so far. Wind gusts peaked at 88 miles per hour, and tropical force winds combined with torrential rain triggered flash flooding across the island. Andersen Air Force Base and Marine Corps Base Camp Blas shut down all non-essential operations and moved personnel into sheltered locations for the duration of the storm. Residents were told to stay out of the water through Thursday. The ocean remained life-threatening. Schools were closed. The island's power grid was reporting outages across multiple areas. Before reaching the Marianas, Sinlaku had already carved a path of destruction through the federated states of Micronesia, leaving major infrastructure damage across the outer islands and atolls of Chuuk. The scale of that damage was the first real sign of what the American territories were about to face. Sinlaku moved methodically, unhurried, taking out everything in its path. Nearly 100 trained disaster relief workers from the American Red Cross flew in from across the country, joining local volunteers and government agencies on the ground. At the same time, veteran-led relief organization Team Rubicon activated an emergency response team working directly with the U.S. Emergency Operations Center, handling logistics, staging equipment, and identifying deployment teams for debris removal and damage assessments. More than 1,000 residents were sheltered across Guam and the Northern Marianas. This marks the 10th Category 4 or 5 cyclone to strike a U.S. state or territory in the last 10 years. As many as the country saw in the previous 57 years combined. Saipan never fully recovered from Super Typhoon U2 in 2018, which wiped out 85% of the local college campus and left more than a quarter of the island's population homeless, and then the pandemic hit on top of that. Now comes Sinlaku. The full scale of the damage will not be known until the winds die down and first responders can finally get outside. Sinlaku is still not done. Neither are we. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover the biggest stories fast and straight. No sugarcoating.